Hello, everyone. Welcome. Thanks for joining our diagnostic training session today. If you have any questions throughout the session, if you're joining us on Zoom, just look at the top or the bottom of your screen. Wherever your Zoom controls are, you should see a little Q&A button. Click on that, hit submit, and we'll get to those at the end of the session. If you're joining us on YouTube, just look wherever the live chat function is. If you're watching live, just feel free to use the live chat. If you're watching after the fact, please feel free to leave a comment. And if you're watching on YouTube, please make sure you like and subscribe. And all that's good. So my name is Jason Gabrinas. I'm one of Snap-on's national diagnostic trainers. I've been in the training department the last 10 years or so, traveling around North America, helping techs and shop owners get the most out of their diagnostic equipment. Before that, it was a couple years as a diagnostic sales rep with Snap-on. So I had about 30 different franchisees I worked with, as well as the shops that they service, in order to help everyone get the most out of their diagnostic needs. And before that, it was 8 years at Subaru. So worked on at a dealership, and over time, I guess, became the default diag guy in the shop. So I always had the drivability problems, the intermittent problems, the weird wiring problems that would happen on those cars. And that's really where I cut my diagnostic teeth, was trying to figure out all those weird head scratcher cars that would come into my bed. And before that, a bunch of other miscellaneous wrenching jobs. Been a little over 25 years under hood experience for me. So our topic today is Reveal the Unseen, Thermal Imaging Diagnostics. I love using thermal imaging for diagnosing certain problems where you can really see heat, if you were here for the that intro video that we just played there. And where do I kind of want to work it into my workflow? So if we think about having a good repeatable diagnostic workflow, that way we don't forget anything along the way. So it all starts with a pre-scan. I'm going to scan all my systems, checking for codes. Then I'll actually go through and diagnose. If there are any codes, I'll diagnose the codes. Otherwise, I can diagnose whatever the symptoms are, symptom-based diagnosis. Then, of course, I'll go through and actually fix the problem, however I need to do that, replace a part or repair some wiring, whatever I have to do. Then I might need to do a reset, recalibration, something of that nature after the fact. And then, of course, at the end, we'll do a post-scan to verify operation at the end. But before that even comes around is where we might start talking about our thermal imaging. Because before we even get to the pre-scan, the customer has to arrive first, right? The customer comes in, and then we intake the customer. Let's capture their complaint. What has brought them to the shop today? Is it a noise? Is it an engine light? Is it my heater's not working? My defrosters, my heater seats, whatever it happens to be, you need to actually capture that complaint, of course, or maybe the service writer does, whoever. And then, of course, we need to verify the complaint. Right? Maybe it's a road test to verify a noise, or it happens after driving it for 20 minutes. You got to drive it for 20 minutes, something like that. Then, of course, we'll inspect the vehicle and uncover the cause. And maybe while we're inspecting it, uncover some other issues. If you think about it, a lot of shops nowadays have gone to the digital vehicle inspection, where you can take pictures, you can say, okay, this is bad, this is good. Allows the customer to understand more about what's going on with their car, especially when it comes to maintenance related issues. So for this focus of this course on thermal imaging, the thermal imaging falls into the inspection phase, where I'm going to inspect the vehicle and see what's going on with it. And then the diagnosis phase to actually determine what is causing this problem. I might be able to see that by using the thermal as well. Now, thermal imaging doesn't necessarily work on a hot-cold type difference. It works on what we call a temperature differential. What is the warmest and coldest thing on the screen that the sensor is seeing? So if we look over here on the left-hand side, boy, that looks pretty hot, right? And it's 175 degrees at the top of the scale there, and the bottom of the scale there is 75 degrees. That's a 100-degree scale from there to there, right? So the coldest thing is going to be 75 degrees, which not really all that cold, right? It's warmer than room temperature. 75 degrees and sunny is a nice day. 175 degrees, yeah, that's pretty warm, and that's on like a corroded connector, right? So that's a 100-degree range, but over here we're seeing this scene 72 degrees to 83 degrees. That's only what? 11.1 degrees difference from high to low. So that looks cold, so to say, but it's really 72 degrees. And then whatever the warmest stuff is, it's in the 80s. maybe the upper 70s even. It's not a huge range in there. So you always got to keep that in mind. It's not hot versus cold. It's relative to what's going on the screen as to what I'm looking at, right? So what's warmer versus colder versus what's going on in, outside. And it helps us, brings us to this, the topic of the title of this class today is Reveal the Unseen. So on this side, we got a motorcycle, and we see we have a double insulated or double walled exhaust pipe there, just so we don't burn our legs, right? So in this scene, 59 degrees is the coldest, so that's still not cold. 770 degrees, that's definitely very hot. That's coming like right out of the pipes at the right at the exhaust ports there. So you can see it's about 770 degrees, and down here, that's on the cooler side. I'd say down this way a little more, maybe 200 degrees, 100 something degrees, something in that range. So it's considerably cooler than it is coming out of the engine. You can see we got the hot spots and the cooler spots, the difference there. On the right-hand side, we have a heated seat. And we can see 17 degrees at the coolest. So that's this metal right here. These little metal pieces. It must have been a cool night. There's a snap. There's a snap, 17 degrees. Versus 69 degrees on the filament here for the heated seat. Now you see that's pretty bright yellow or almost white there at that 69 degrees. Or on this scene, it's 770 degrees. So you always need to take a look at the range that you're looking at before you make any assumptions like, oh man, it's like 700 degrees. No, it's not, 69. So just remember that it allows you to see the differences in the temperature. So let's look at a little case study. So this is one of our diagnostic reps. Nathan brought this to me. And he has a Dodge Ram and had a lot of miles on it. Worked for Snap-on. There's you get a lot of windshield time there. So 371,000 miles on this truck. Let's see. So oil temp 194, coolant temp 186, trans temp 215. That seems a little high, even though it is 100 degrees outside, but still. He's in Texas, so that's been pretty much any day during the summer, I guess, this year. But he was a little concerned that his transmission temperature is a little higher than it should be, than he thought it should be. So he decided to take a look there. Now, where the transmission cooler is on this model, there's a transmission cooler that mounts to the front of the radiator, kind of on the upper part of the radiator where the grill would be. Makes sense. So the heat can dissipate from the transmission. And then we have the lines that come down here and, of course, go back out to the transmission, and then it bolts to the front of the radiator. Also in there, we have this block. So this block has a little like thermostat type thing in there, where depending on what the temperature is, it opens and closes and allows flow to go in through the transcooler once it gets to a certain temperature. So he decided to investigate both the cooler and this block, and come to find out that block was blocked. 237 degrees right there, 86 degrees down there. Remember how he said, not necessarily hot versus cold, but 237 degrees there. And the other side of that, somewhere down in the middle here, maybe 100 degrees. So it's definitely not flowing through. It's just kind of getting stuck there. And we can see there's a high concentration of heat there, and it's not really flowing anymore. It's kind of like, if you see where it's kind of homogeneous with the color, right? So everything seems to be pretty much the same color. That means we're really not having any movement. It's kind of dissipating there. So you can see it's got a high spot there, and then the rest of it, it's not really moving, not really dissipating. So it ended up being that little thermal switch, thermostat, whatever you want to call it there, thermistor. It's actually serviceable too. It's got a little clip. You can pop it out of that block, put a new one in. So of course he did that, fixed up the problem. Didn't have to replace the whole assembly. You just really needed to replace that block or the part within the block if you can get that separately. So I thought that was kind of nice to be able to see that right on the front of the truck there, nice and hot. And it's just this thing right here. So it can be easily replaced in moments, I would imagine. Just pull the line off, pull the clip out, pop it out, pop it in. Yeah, you're probably gonna have some transmission fluid falling out, but probably mitigate that as well. All right, so that's just one good example. Another one, electrical diagnosis. Now, this is probably, I would think, if you have a thermal imager or if you're thinking about adding a thermal imager to your repertoire, this is probably where you might go first. That between that and radiators, I guess, cooling system diagnosis. But a lot of people go to the electrical diagnosis because you can see resistance just by looking at the temperature. So we think about resistance as a factor of it will release heat, because that the energy that the resistance is sapping out, the voltage is getting sapped out, will increase the amount of current, will increase the amount of temperature in the circuit. So this vehicle had just gotten the battery posts changed, or maybe not just got it changed, but you can definitely see it's an aftermarket battery post, right? You got the post here, and then you got where the two screws that go and hold down the wire that goes in the two bolts. And you can see it's quite warm, 118 degrees in that section right there, 109 degrees right in the middle. That vehicle, this vehicle that right here, was a no start. And the reason it was a no start, like, oh, well, we replaced the battery, replaced the cable ends. Yeah, well, that cable end is considerable amount of resistance. And it was enough to sap 3 volts out of the system. So from here to the other side of that, it was a 3-volt drop going through that connector, or from there to the starter. I'm not sure exactly where they measured it, but we were losing 3 volts to get to the starter. That means the starter didn't have enough juice to start, and that's why it was a no start condition. So they fixed up the terminal, everything was done. Another example of a high resistance connector, not just the battery terminal, but this is the one we showed a little bit before, right? 175 degrees. It's like a little connector on top of, maybe, I don't even know. But it's a flat connector. You can see how they're kind of plugged in. You can see it's much warmer on that particular plug. That might even show some melting if I went to go look at that, but that's high resistance. That's going to give me a voltage drop. That'll give me a problem. I like this one because this one you can see plain as day in a harness. In a harness, there's this one wire, or maybe it's a couple wires, but we got one hot spot right there, and it kind of flows up that harness. There's multiple wires in here, and we can see how it's got a hot spot. And then over here, it's not really quite as hot anymore. That's only 18-degree difference in this scene. So you can see it's definitely a lot cooler in that point. So you just point the thing at it and see how hot it is. There's a couple examples I've caught, wiring in the house. You've been able to see that, high draw on a switch or something like that. You can see the switch is considerably warmer than the rest in the panel. Relay stuck on. We can see these couple relays there. If you're trying to look for a draw overnight, where is the problem? Where's the draw? And you can see what relays are on after shutting everything down. What relays are on? If the relay is on, then that's the circuit you need to investigate and see what the problem is. You could also see with a fuse, it had a high draw through a fuse. One of the fuses would be hotter than the others, and then you'd be able to investigate it that way. Tires and brakes. This is another one you might not necessarily think about when it comes to thermal imaging, but if you think about it a little longer, you will realize that if I have a problem with my alignment or inflation or something of that nature, we got a couple examples of each. But if I have a problem with my alignment, the friction will be different on the contact patch of the tire. So in this case, we had an alignment issue here. It was considerably warmer on the outside than it was on the inside, versus this one's fairly even temperature all the way across. So that one had an alignment issue where it was rubbing on the outside more than on the inside. And then once you fix the alignment, you can just drive the car down the road again, see if the temperature is even. If it is nice and even, then you don't have a problem. How about overinflation? So overinflation means the contact patch is going to be pushing out further in the middle. So we'll be riding more on the middle of the tire than on the outside of the tire. And then I will see an increased temperature on the middle of the tire versus on the outside for overinflation. Conversely, underinflation, you can see this isn't as big of a difference, but we can still see in the middle, it is cooler than on the outside. So that's an underinflated tire. It's going to be riding more on the outside than on the inside. So see that difference there. And then this is one of my all-time favorites. Where is the leak in the tire? Sometimes you can't tell depending on how the tread is and whatnot. I can't tell, well, where is the leak? In this case, we have a pinhole leak in the tire because the high pressure air will be cooler than the surrounding air. So you see we got a little cool spot right there versus the rest of the tire it's fairly warm, over 100 degrees. And then that's coming out at maybe, 90 degrees, something like that. It's coming out cooler than, because the high pressure will decrease the temperature. So we can see that right there. Where's the leak? Then you can I always hated using the soapy water or wrangling the tire, taking it off, putting it in the bathtub, both those things. We don't need to worry about that. We can just use thermal imager and use it. Stuck caliper bolt in this case. This is going to be going back and forth between two sides of the vehicle. So one side is going to be got 300 degrees at the highest, and this was 120 degrees at the highest. So you can see 300 degrees at the edge of the caliper, and this one's just 100 degrees at the edge of that rotor. Big difference side to side. And then you can see that temperature differential too. It's still -3 at the bottom no matter what. But because there's such a huge difference on the other side of what's hottest, everything else looks cold, relatively speaking. Right, so that's a huge difference between normal side and then stuck caliper bolt on the other side. So I think that's kind of cool. This one's on my car. I did my brakes not that long ago in the spring, and they don't have a lot of miles on them considering, and I have warped rotors in the back. I know it's got to be in the back because, of course, we're not doing the thing with the steering wheel. We feel it in the seat and maybe in the pedal. Right? Feel it the back rotors. So they're warped. And I thought, well, if it's warped, I should be able to see a difference in temperature, right? And I was able to see a difference in temperature. So we're looking at 111 degrees at that spot right there. That's on one. That's on the rotor where it seems to be less hot. And then if I go to a different spoke on the wheel, we see 152 degrees. So 40-degree difference in between the two. And I bet you if I went over here on this one, it would have been even more of a difference because it looks like it's even cooler on that part of the rotor because it's going to be one part of the rotor hits and one part of the rotor doesn't. So some of it's going to be warmer than the other. And you can see that using. How about a drivability problem? This is always a fun one for me to use this for too, because you can see, well, in this case, which cylinder is misfiring? 4-cylinder, or maybe it's a V8, could be. We're just looking at a bank of 4 cylinders though. And one's considerably cooler than the other. See that one right there? That cylinder is not firing. So there's your misfire. So if you had like a PO300 and you weren't quite sure where it was, maybe you might be able to see it like that. So it's not firing there. And then when it's fixed, everybody's nice and even 350. And then you might ask, well, why is it misfiring? In this case, we got a row of coils here, and you can see warm, 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 cold, relatively speaking, 60-something degrees. Now you see it is warmer underneath. Well, that's probably from where the spark plug is. The spark plug tube might be a little bit warmer than around the top because these coils making electricity, generating electricity, current flowing through it. So if this one's not flowing any current, you're not going to see that. It'll be the same temperatures as ambient. Versus over here, where we have a bank of coils, and you can see that all of them are generating the same type of heat, same amount of heat. So in that case, it looks like they're all working. Here's another good one Nathan sent in too. It's a clogged muffler. So this one, he was actually in the shop working. He was a diagnostic rep, so he was going around the franchisee. And they went to the shop and they were talking to the techs and the owner or whatever. They said, yeah, we have this car in here. And the lady was complaining of lack of power and whatever. And we're pretty sure it's a clogged muffler, but we're not 100% sure. We need to be able to take it off to see. We can tell there's not much flow going through the muffler. So we suspect that it's clogged. And she doesn't want to okay the work because she just suspects that we're trying to pull one over on her or whatever. I said, fine, okay, let's take a look. So he took a look at the thermal, snapped a picture, went in the waiting room where the owner was, or manager or whatever, was talking to the customer. And he said, hey, the clogged muffler, you can see where the exhaust is going in and nothing's coming out. So it's going right there. And then it's just not making it all the way through the muffler. You can see it visually. It's like, oh, okay, that makes sense. Yeah, I guess I need a new muffler. But lacking the picture, they were getting a lot of pushback and resistance from the customer versus a picture's worth 1,000 words, as we always say. So see hot exhaust going in, no exhaust going out. That means not flowing. How about the cooling system? That's another one that might pop in as an fairly obvious thing that you could use thermal imaging on, because it's anything that generates heat, right? So you can see is a heater valve not working. So you can see the coolant's there, coolant flowing through, but it's not flowing through here. So it's just not doing what it's supposed to do. And then after the fix, you can see where it opens, everything has a nice amount of flow going through there. How about a radiator? Right, it's going to go top to bottom and left to right. It's going to kind of cross flow. So you can see how it's warmer over here, much cooler over there. That means it is not flowing through. It's kind of stuck in this tank right here. It's not really flowing through that radiator. It's clogged somewhere halfway through. It's not flowing through half the fins. Put a new radiator in it. You can use this as your verification step too, but use it, put a radiator in it. You can see now it's flowing nicely through all of it. Now it seems like it's really hot, as we said. Remember what I said at the beginning, temperature differential, 88 degrees right there. So it's just starting to warm up at that time. Thermostat, same deal, right? Here's a thermostat that's not opening, whether or not it was at the right temperature or not, 153 degrees, not sure. That's just on the housing anyway. But you can see the hose is cold and the housing is warm. And then over here, we can see where the housing is open, it's very warm. And then the coolant is flowing through that hose. Bad versus good. This one, I really wish he got a video of. He did not. But because that would have been a really cool video. I said visually on the screen, it looked really cool. But it looks like this is with the original, so that didn't have video. On the original diagnostic thermal imager, only the Elite does. But this was a car they were suspecting had a blown head gasket, but they couldn't be totally sure. So he actually aimed the thermal at the radiator hole, the hole in the radiator there, and you can see. He said you were able to see the swirlies going through where the hydrocarbons from the blown head gasket, hydrocarbons getting in the coolant. You can actually see where the temperature was warmer with the gases flowing through the coolant. I thought that was kind of cool. You'd be able to see that. It's pretty neat. Other items. Here's another one. This one was another one from Nathan. Nathan loves his thermal image. But he bought a truck used, and he would drive it around a lot. And then as he's driving, he noticed when he'd get like a crosswind, he'd get this horrible whistling sound from the driver's side door. He wasn't really sure where it was leaking. So what he did was he closed the doors, cranked up the heat full blast, full heat and full fan, and then went around the door and saw where is the hot air escaping. Because if we have air going in, most likely we'll be able to get air coming out through the blower as well. So we took a look, and you see it looks hot, 56 degrees. It was 30 something degrees outside. But 50 some degrees coming out around this door handle, and come to find out there's supposed to be insulation behind that, and there was not. So hence he had an air leak that when he get a driving wind on the side of the truck, that would happen. You hear it. So he was able to see that by turning on that heater bulb. Pretty cool. And then the last one from him is, what is it worth to protect your home, protect your family? He came home one day, kind of smelled maybe an electrical type smell. And he started hunting around, kind of looking around where the electrical type smell was coming from. And he found out that he had this little, dual USB, dual outlet adapter plugged in. And that USB is not plugged in to anything. And it is drawing power. Should only be drawing power when there's something plugged into it. So that was considered, 96 degrees. If you let that go for too long, that could cause a fire, depending on where everything is, right? So definitely a worth it in that case. Definitely worth it in that case. So we do have a whole family at Snap-on. There's other imagers out there as well. But any of ours, you have the original, you have the thermal laser, and then we have the diagnostic thermal imager Elite, which is the one that has video and picture-in-picture, multiple other settings. This is the thermal laser, is kind of like a thermal imager with the laser pointer thermometer type deal, the contactless thermometer. So that's a best of both worlds in that case. And then we have the original, which is a thermal. On the diagnostic thermal imager Elite, it does save 3 pictures as well. It saves it to the tools, 3 pictures, and it'll upload them as 3 pictures. So you can see we get the straight thermal with just a watermark. We get straight video because it does have a video camera. And then we have the thermal along with any of the markings on it. So we get the temperature gauge, the crosshairs, pinpoint temperatures. So it saves all three of those, uploads them to the cloud like that. And as I said, the Elite will automatically upload to the Snap-on Cloud. Once again, Snap-on Cloud is free. I can use this. I can use my scan tools. Lots of different Snap-on things actually sync to the cloud. This was the first thing, though, that did sync to the cloud, thermal imager. So that is my slides. Let's go look live. Now we're doing something a little bit different in this class that I don't normally do, but I think it's interesting. And that is, I got a camera over here. I don't try not to hit my camera itself, but I do have a camera over here. Let's see if that starts. So camera on my thermal image. Should have started that up a little earlier. We're going to walk through a few things. Now, this is just sitting on a desk, so you wouldn't be able to really see anything going on with it. It's not really, the temperature should be fairly constant with it. You see it's like 85 degrees in the middle. That's because my mixing board's under here, and that does generate a bit of heat. So that's why we're seeing that heat there. But I want to go through a few menu functions. Right? So menu. The first thing in the menu is going to be the troubleshooter. There is a built-in troubleshooter within the tool that'll show you a bunch of different things, known good versus known bad. Let's say, for example, powertrain. Let's see, how about something we didn't talk about, like pulleys and bearings. All right, like an idler pulley. So we can see there is an idler pulley there. And if we go up, that's known good. Key on engine running, inspect the idler pulley with diagnostic thermal imager for excessive heat signature. And there's your bad one. So there's your bad, really hot, 300 degrees. And then your good one, I don't know, somewhere in the middle there, right? Not nearly 300 degrees. The hottest thing in the picture is 200 degrees. That's like the end. Let's see, what else? Let's go back to HVAC. Condenser. So we can see there's a good condenser there. AC on high, inspect the condenser with a diagnostic thermal imager. Even cooling across the condenser should be displayed. No hot spot should be present. And then there's a spot with a hot spot right there. All good. No bad. If we go back in here, there's also a built-in demonstration. So if I go down to demonstration, we can see this is on another AC condenser, but this is a video this time. So we can see how that kind of works. And see what the temperature looks like. I can flip through this too, right? Heated seats. Here's the example we saw. Exhaust leak. There's an exhaust leak. You can kind of see it in between the pipe right there. I think that's pretty cool. You can see that. That's a dual wall pipe. Wheel bearing. There's your bad wheel bearing, actually in a video there too, so you can see the temperature. In heat on either side. There's that AC condenser again. There's a bad one, nothing going through. See how I got a hot spot there and nothing else. And then your known good, you can see how I got flow going on. So that is visually big difference. So that's one of the beautiful things about using thermal. All right, so that's my information. That's my troubleshooter. Next one's going to give you all the files saved on the tool. So in this example, we have put down here a couple pictures here. A couple pictures of my kid the other day. Trying to see if she had a temperature. All right, what's this? So this is actually my air conditioner that's sitting behind me here. It's like, man, it's not cooling that great. I was on a hot day. We can see there's the AC unit there. It's about 70 degrees coming out the front, 104 degrees on the sides. I think it's about time I insulate the sides of that there, because that's pretty warm. You can actually see that. And then if I go down, there's the wall, and then there it is without anything on it. And then there's a switch too for that. You can see how the switch is warmer too. So a lot of different things we can see with that. There's a video. So you can save the videos. Now, how you would get these off the tool is the videos need to be taken off using USB. So it does come with a USB charger. So the same cable you use for a charger, you can offload them onto your computer. You just plug it in with the USB cord. Also on the images, you'll see I have a cloud over here. So that means they upload to the Snap-on cloud as well. So we'll take a look at that in a minute, but there is that's how you would be able to note that it's up there and it's uploaded. So you'll see a cloud if it's sitting on the tool, and you'll see a cloud with a check mark once it's up. If I move to the right, we'll get to the trash can. The trash can will be highlight whatever file you want to delete it. And then over here's settings. So we have the Wi-Fi connection. Of course, you need to set up Wi-Fi on the tool in order for it to work with the Snap-on Cloud service. We go down to Altus Setup. That's going to give us the settings that we need in order to do that. So Altus Setup is going to give me my serial number, my PIN, and my code. And it says go to Altus Drive. There's also a QR code that gets you there. Date and time, of course. Color palette. So on color palette, it defaults to that iron that we're used to. But there's also rainbow. There's also gray to iron. And then this one's cool to hot. So on cool to hot, what it's going to do is it's going to light up the coolest thing in the scene in blue, the warmest thing in the scene in red, and then everything else will just be kind of a gradient. So that it'll really jump out at you if you're looking for something hot or cold. It's again relative to each other. You'll be able to see that there. Brightness is going to change the brightness of the screen. Language will change the different languages that I can speak. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Kind of shows you where we go in the world. 7, 8. 8 different languages. There's not a lot to translate in it, just menus and stuff. I mean, the actual imager itself doesn't really have much for that. Automatic shutdown time, how long before it shuts down. Navigation tips. Spotlight intensity. So this does have a spotlight on. If I hit the yes button, you can see down there at the bottom of the yes button, there's a little icon, looks like a light. So it does have a camera, video camera. So you can change how bright the spotlight is. Thermal camera calibration. So I can go in there and actually calibrate it. I shouldn't have done that because I did not want to calibrate here. I guess. Right. And then we have advanced. So in advanced, we have temperature. You can change between Celsius and Fahrenheit. Emissivity. So emissivity is different materials will emit thermal energy at different rates. So it defaults to plastic, rubber, paint, and metal because that's generally what you're going to run into under the hood of a car. We can do strong oxidized iron and steel and leather, mild oxidized iron and steel, polished cast iron and steel, polished aluminum and chrome. You can change that. Object distance, is it near to me or is it far? Wi-Fi status, check the micro SD card, and then some about it. Okay, and then I can back out of that. And then we see over here, it's going to be, this is the point of the crosshairs. How warm is the temperature? Battery level, Wi-Fi status, zoom level, which we can change that going left to right. So it's going to be, if I go right from there, I get picture in picture. So that's camera on the outside and then thermal on the inside. If I go to the right, we get side by side camera versus thermal. Next one, we get 1x zoom, 2x zoom, and 3x. And then we have opacity as well. So 100% thermal, go down, 80, 60, 40, 20, then straight camera. So you can see the different opacities in there. And of course, the scale is on the right-hand side. So that's the camera. And then what if I wanted to go to share my files? So I can go to Snap-on Cloud. It's going to be altusdrive.com. And then all my files will save here because it's linked. And then we will see. All right. So there is, like, for example, my daughter, right? 94 degrees on her forehead. She did not have a fever then. bunch of other stuff. Down here, a few screenshots. There's that AC unit I did. Way down. There's my brakes from the other day. And so you can see my brakes. If I go to the right, there's my straight thermal. If I go to the middle, thermal with the notations on it. And if I go to the left, I get the straight cam. Now I can share this with a customer. If I just hit the link, I can share it with my phone. If I had it open on my phone, I could do that via email or copy to the clipboard and then paste the link somewhere else so I can actually send it to a customer, get better, quicker approvals, things like that. I can mark it whether or not it's known good or known bad. I can also tag it. So I put in wheels and brakes. Rotor, I could put it in there, I suppose. Rotor. And any of those become searchable terms. So if I go back here and I wanted to search, go all the way back at the beginning, and I wanted to look for rotor. There we go. There's the one I tagged with rotor. If I wanted to look for thermal imager, it automatically tags it with DTI delete anytime you use that tool. So there's all my thermal images that I've uploaded in there. Dog, my cat, things at the house, AC stuff, all sorts of different things. And it uploads, like I said, automatically. As long as the tool is synced, it will upload automatically. And see that. All right, so that is thermal. Let's talk about what we're going to talk about next week. Next week, we are going to go through current probes and pressure transducers. What are you missing? I think these are the two most common accessory probes that people will get once they get a scope. And then they're not sure 100% how to use them, how to set them up. So we're going to walk through the two different things and a bunch of the different tests that you can do with your current probes and pressure transducers when you add them on. So same time, same place, as always, every Tuesday, 6 and 9 Eastern. First one goes live to YouTube. So 6 p.m. as we're doing right now goes live to YouTube. YouTube.com/Snap-on Diagnostics. Please make sure you like and subscribe. 9 p.m. Eastern class goes straight to my Facebook page, which is facebook.com/Snap-on Jason, all one word. You may follow over there. And then both classes are always streamed to Zoom. So if you want to go to snapon.com/OT and make sure you register. Now, we did change the link. This part didn't change. The snapon.com/OT didn't change. But if you go down to the click here to register, that did change this week over to last week. So if you are a regular and you're watching and you're wondering why your Zoom link didn't work, that's why. Also, if you are looking to get a certificate for any of these classes that you want to attend, you need to attend them live on Zoom, because we will then take your name, your email address, and we will email you a certificate from the class that you took. So the only way we can track that is through Zoom. So you would need to register through Zoom to get that. I know a lot of folks like that for their continuing education purposes. So we are starting that back up again. We did it for a while. We stopped for a little while. Now with this new link and the new account that we're using, we'll be able to do that way more efficiently. So yes, we will be doing that again. So if you want a certificate for a class, you need to register for Zoom. Just so you know. Now, if you want to see any of the other topics in this series, there's 72 different half-hour-ish, 40-minute free training, anything from ADOS to the power of SureTrack and anything in between. Hybrid vehicles, HVAC, VVT, a wealth of knowledge at your fingertips for free. So if you go to youtube.com/Snap-on Diagnostics, there is a playlist for live training. It's readily available. Now let's get to questions. If you do have questions on Zoom, just look for that Q&A button, click on that. Should be able to get to that. Otherwise, I see a few things going on YouTube. We'll get to those here in a second. Before I do, though, I also want to mention my buddy Keith also does free training. He does free training based on ScanTool. So on Wednesday, it's on Zeus Plus, and on Thursday, it is on Apollo and Triton. So they're combo classes. They're all about an hour and 45 minutes or so. And he goes all the way through setup functions first. Set up your Wi-Fi. Let's talk about Snap-on Cloud, talk about Security Link. Then he goes through code to completion on the scan tool with Fast Track Intelligent Diagnostics. How does it help me as a tech? And then he takes a little break, about 5 minutes after the first hour. And then he goes through about another 45 minutes on the guided component test, scope, things like that, the testing portion of the tool. Very thorough class. Keith's been with us for over 30 years. He actually came over with Sun. So he's been doing this even longer than that. came over with the big Sun engine analyzer days, used to sell those. So he's been around for a very long time, very knowledgeable. These classes are designed to get your questions answered. If you have a question navigationally about how to work through the tool, that's your class you want to go to, because you actually go through, you can type a question, you'll be able to answer it, hopefully, as best as you can, depending on what the question is. This isn't a how do I fix this car, this is a how do I use the tool type class, but very, very thorough, definitely worth your time. And once again, it's free. Zoom only in this case, snapon.com/OT. All right, let's get to questions. Looking, like I said, Zoom looks clear. Let's go to YouTube, Turbo Tim's World. Hello, welcome, Quinn. What's up? Don't forget to like the video, he says. Good advice. Nick chiming in from the UK. Always glad to see you. Dan Cujo, welcome. DJ says, just last week was showing my guys how temperature is related to pressure and voltage using a thermal energy camera. Very accurate way to diagnose once you understand the concept. Yes, exactly. So, voltage, pressure, higher pressure is going to have higher temperatures. Voltage, current flow more than voltage, I guess, in that case. Definitely with thermal imager, it's very accurate way to diagnose it. Easy, because I don't have to take things apart. That's the thing I like about thermals. You don't have to take anything apart. And then Turbo Tim's World says, I have underfloor heating and a cat, and you have to see those images. Yeah, I can imagine. You can definitely see the tubing underneath the floor, and then the cat. Yeah, for sure. Actually, I had a large nest of yellow jackets underneath my bay window, and the person who came and took care of them, he actually used a thermal camera to look and see where's the nest. So he wanted to make sure the nest wasn't in the wall. Bobby Gentry says thanks, and right on. Then Dan Cujo asks, can you buy updates for a scan tool if you buy it from eBay? Yes, you can. You just have to go to a Snap-on franchisee, and then just pay for it. Or you can put it on subscription, or you can, depending on what the tool is. Now, I will say with eBay, you do want to double check. If you can beforehand, get the serial number of the tool, and then call up customer care and make sure that it's not stolen, make sure it's paid off. Because that can get into some weird stuff going on with that. Because, if somebody still owes money on it and, they haven't paid it off and they're trying to sell it, that can be a problem. Considering it owes money on it, and technically it has a lien on it. If you want to think of it that way, it's not really a lien, but you know what I mean. They still owe somebody money on it. So we'd want to make sure you wouldn't want to have to worry about taking that on. But otherwise, I would do your due diligence first, and then after that, you can absolutely buy an update for it, as long as it's an updatable tool. That's the other thing. As over time, over the years, we do, tool gets to an end of life, usually about 10 years or so, where it just can't handle the updates anymore. So we just say, all right, end of life's going to be the end of the year, and then we don't update it. So just, you can buy an update. You can definitely buy an update from us, from a Snap-on guy, dealer, franchisee, whatever you want to call them. You can buy them from them for sure. Put it on subscription. I guess depending on your Snap-on guy, they might have rather sold you a tool themselves, but hey, it happens. So if you're at least buying a software update from them, I think they'll be happy about that. So, all right. Looks like that is clear of all questions. So with that, I'd like to say thank you very much. Thank you for spending a little bit of time with me, going through thermal imaging and how it can help you with your diagnostic today. Hopefully you'll join me next week for current probes and pressure transducers. And hopefully we'll see you at one of our classes in the future. Enjoy the rest of your week. Enjoy your weekend. Have a good night and take care.